Don't hang up that phone. We've found what you're looking for. Welcome to the Let's Talk Cabling Podcast with Chuck Bowser, RCDD. Well, seeing how we're pulling Category 6A, the most powerful twisted pair in the world, you got to ask yourself this one question. Did I pull 295 or 300 feet? Well, do you feel lucky? Do you, punk? What exactly does RCDD stand for? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. Just the expert you need to ensure your cable plant performs exactly as designed. The elite professional, knowledgeable, and experienced in leading-edge ICT design principles. Now, send the new guy to the truck for a bucket of dial tone and the cable stretchers, while you listen to an informative program on telecommunications.
Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Can only mean one thing. After Hours Live with Chuck Bowser, RCDD, where you get to ask your favorite RCDD questions on installation, design, certification, project management, estimation, even career path questions. I'm here for the next 30 minutes to answer your questions. Don't forget the new guy for some frequency grease. There you go. Ed, the old tech guy, is in the house. If you are not following Ed, the old tech guy, you need to. Man's a wealth of knowledge. He's going to help me set up a little network here in the studio so we can make some more videos. So make sure you watch out for that. Make sure you watch out for that. So Thursday night, 6 p.m., always start off with, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? Right? If you know me, I am drinking Zevia soda. But if you look at this closely, you'll notice that the Zevia soda has like a little bit of a purplish tint to it. You know why? Because I put freeze-dried blueberries in it. And it gives it a little bit of taste of blueberry. I've already eaten all the blueberries out of it. So tell us in the comments, what are you drinking? Remember, it's after hours, so you can drink anything you want. Even adult beverages are even allowed. Also, while we're talking about this, let's not forget about the QR codes. The QR codes, right? So if you find value in this show, make sure you click on that QR code right there. Do you use your cell phone? Click on it. You can buy me you can buy me a Zevia soda. Or you can schedule a 15-minute one-on-one call with me after hours, of course. Somebody says, Woodford Reserve soon. Somebody gave me some Woodford Reserve once. So make sure that you support the show. And also, if you know any companies that would benefit from sponsoring this program, reach out to them. And, there are free ways that you can support this program. Like this video, share this video, tell people about the podcast. We had a really, really good month. A really good month on YouTube. We had 46,000 views, 26,000 minutes watched, and we gained 147 subs. We did really, really good last month. I'm really happy with those numbers. And again, I'm not a numbers chaser, but the more numbers I have, the more authenticity that YouTube thinks I have, and then they spread this out to everybody. So remember, we're trying to educate everybody. Now, you know me, next step is going to be, what is the acronym for the week? The acronym this week is SONNET, S-O-N-E-T. Thank you, Mr. Ed. Ed says, congratulations, Chuck. Lovart Warby says, smiles, long time ago, the old guys got me with that one. Oh, yeah, signing up for the dial tone. Yeah, there you go. SONNET, what does that mean? S-O-N-E-T. Come on, somebody's got to know what this means. It's the acronym. Every weekday morning, 8:10 on LinkedIn, I do a acronym challenge, and we're in the letter S this week. So who's that? So Nate says he's drinking Coke Zero. Luke is drinking water. What? Shotzi is drinking water? What? The world is coming to an end. Shotzi's drinking water. He's not drinking a 2-liter Diet Dr. Are you on a diet, Shotzi? Inquiring minds want to know. So nobody's even trying to bother to answer what sonnet means? Really? Nobody knows what sonnet means? Alrighty, so here's do this. Let's go ahead and clear that. Whoops, hit the wrong one. Clear that one. So what does sonnet mean? Sonnet is another acronym. I told you we're in the S's. Bing, ding, 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 ding. Ed, the old tech guy, got it. He said synchronous optical network. Fiber Flipper says it's an old fiber transport system. Ed, you did get it. You were the first one. So it does stand for synchronous optical network. What does the TDMM say about sonnet? It says, and this is right from the TDMM, the sonnet is the standard for North America and SDH is the international standard. These two standards are basically identical. These standards organize transmissions into 810 byte frames that includes bits related to signal routing and destination, as well as the data being transported. So you have a synchronous transmission and an asynchronous transmission. Synchronous transmission works off a timed relationship. There's a clock, an internal clock that they synchronize. So what happens is it'll actually send that signal at certain predetermined times. Asynchronous, that's going to put a start bit on it and a stop bit on it. And the start bit just tells the receiver, hey, start listening. And the stop bit tells the receiver to quit listening. That's an asynchronous transmission. Synchronous is with the time pause. Motivational minute. Yes, motivational minute. Got this one from a meme. Is it meme or is it May? I always get that confused. Somebody tell me in the chat box. Is it meme or is it May? Somebody tried to tell me what time is May. I'm like, nah, I'm pretty sure it's meme. Pretty sure it's meme. And I got this one from one of those. And Ed, by the way, does a meme challenge. You can probably do it next Tuesday on his live stream. Make sure you check him out. So this one says, one day or day one. One day or day one. Your choice. Let that sink in. One day or day one. Your choice. What's that telling you? It's telling you, yeah, you can be a dreamer. You can be a dreamer. But you know what? Things don't get done until you take action. And it's your choice to take that action. Don't be like Chuck. Don't procrastinate. Chuck is a huge procrastinator. Ask my wife about the baseboards in the house. 7 years. Yeah. Hey, did you catch last week's show? Did you? Last week's show, we talked to Eaton about PDUs, power distribution units. So we had one of their experts come on and talk to us about it. Make sure you check it. We talked about what they are, some design considerations. Can you use a PDU and a UPS together? We covered some good stuff. Hey, let me know in the chat box, either in TikTok or on the Ustream that you're watching, the live stream you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn. Let me know if you watched that show. Pretty cool show. Next week's show is going to be pretty cool too. I can't wait to broadcast it. I did an interview. We're going to be talking about outside plant or OSP. And I interviewed Phil Klingingsmith and Chad, if I can say his name correctly, Schultezek. Now, a lot of you guys like to call Chuck an expert. I hate that term. I don't like to be called an expert. You know, when I went to the Bixie conference, here's my Bixie thing. It's taped. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ribbons. 6 ribbons on my badge. One says RCDD. One says tech. One says what region I'm from. Stuff like that. Phil's Klingingsmith went down to his knees. His was easily 3 or 4 times longer than mine. I had Banner, or what they call it, jealousy. Yeah, that's it. Banner jealousy. Phil Klingingsmith helped write the OSP manual. Huge expert on it. What is the 3M fiber under my desk? Oh, somebody's got some good eyes. Yes, although it's not 3M, it's another manufacturer. But yes, so the TikTok feeds over here, I happen to have some OM3 sitting underneath my desk because when I make my network, I'm buying a Eaton 6RU cabinet right here with a see-through door. I'm going to put a switch in it that Ed's sending me on the patch pan. I'm going to run some copper and some fiber from that network to the one in the back, and then we can make some more videos. Good eye, man. Yes, so it's OM3 fiber sitting on the floor on my desk. And underneath of that is my my trip light PoE switch, 24-port PoE switch. So next week, we're going to be talking about OSP, and make sure you don't miss that one. It's going to be a great show. We're going to talk about some design considerations. What is aerial cable plant? What's direct buried? What's underground fiber, underground OSP? What's the difference between underground OSP and direct buried? We're going to cover all that stuff, by the way. Since we were talking Sonnet, this comes from Ed, the old tech guy. OC3 stands for Optical Carrier 3. Excellent. Ed's a smart guy. I'm telling you, man. I'm learning from him every single day. I forget all the fiber optic carriers and their carrying bandwidth. Oops, not a problem. That's what we have books for. It can remind us that stuff. Oh. Good news. You know, I do meetups, live meetups, right? Throughout the country. Well, east of the country. Doing one in Chicago. It's solidified. Going to be doing it. Yep. I'm doing one in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'm doing one in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Doing one in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. One in Baltimore. I'm even doing one in Birmingham, Alabama. So make sure you watch my social media feeds to see when these are. So they're typically going to be done after hours, like 6 to 6:30. And make sure you come visit me. I typically do 30 minutes. That's my goal, but I don't hold it to that. If I get, sometimes I have nobody show up. Sometimes Harrisburg, May 9th, I think. Watch my social media because it'll be posted there, right? So I generally, if it takes longer than 30 minutes, if a bunch of people show, I'm not going to stop in 30 minutes. I'm going to go as long as I can. And I'm trying to work out. Let me know if you guys are interested in this. I'm talking to UCL Swift. And I'm trying to see if I can either purchase a used fusion splicer, hopefully at a discount, because I don't make a lot of money. On the podcast, I don't make a lot of money. Or maybe get them to not donate one, but loan me one so I can do maybe some fusion splicing at these meetups. Let me know if that's something that interests you, right? And if it is, make sure you reach out to UCL Swift and say, hey, I hear you and Chuck are doing some meetups. Yeah, that way they hear it coming from other people other than Chuck. Because I told them I'm going to be doing them all over. So, oh, by the way, Atlanta. I forgot Atlanta. I'm doing that one too. I can't wait for the Birmingham one because my favorite barbecue restaurant is in Birmingham, Alabama. It's Saul's Barbecue. And there's also somebody there somebody says the KF4A is pretty nifty. That's the one I'm trying to get. Yes, that's the one I'm trying to get. And they said they're willing to work with me. They did. I just have to follow up on some emails with them. So so we're going to be doing that on the meetups. I'm also on the Meetup app. So if you have the Meetup app on your phone, look me up. You'll see I'm going to post them in there once I know the actual dates. Some of them I know the actual dates right now, but I'm still working out the travel arrangements. And that's when I'm going to be doing the meetups. Depends on when my flight lands, right? So let's get to the first question. Remember, this is your show. If you have questions, put them in the comments in the chat box. Put them in the chat box here on whatever live stream you're watching it. This question comes from Stephanie. And it came to me via TikTok. And Stephanie says, which is higher, codes or standards? Which is higher, codes or standards? If you think you know the answer, put it in the comments. Which is higher, codes or standards? Now, before I answer that question, let me ask you a question. Let's say that since we're talking about Sonnet, right? So let's say you got some job with a lot of fiber on it. Are you going to send your apprentice, the guy that's his first day in communications, to terminate that fiber? Are you going to send the copper crew who may have pulled fiber but never terminated before? Or are you going to send your fiber technician? Which are you going to do? Right? You're probably going to send the specialist, probably the person who's been trained on how to do fiber. So when it comes to standards, one of the things you got to keep in mind, and I feel like I've answered this question just a few weeks back. Oh, by the way, that reminds me. I did not do a show last Thursday night, and I apologize for that. I had one scheduled, Last minute, I had to dump it for some personal reasons. So I apologize for not doing a live stream last Thursday. Okay. And, oh, I just had an idea. Why don't I do a live stream at one of my meetups while I'm traveling? Dude, that would be so cool. That would be absolutely rock. Maybe Ed and I can do that when I'm in Chicago. Yeah, that would be a cool live stream. We could do a live stream with me and him talking. Yeah. Anyways, getting back to Stephanie's question. So the code, I want you to remember this about codes. Codes are for safety. Safety, not performance, safety. They're for minimum quality of construction. Minimum quality of construction. Minimum being the operative word there. Minimum. Okay? Now, actually, if you actually get out the code book, and I have the 2023 code book. I also have the 2020 code book, and I got some other code books. Did I ever mention that I'm a code bookaholic? Hey, if you got an old code book and you don't want to throw it away, you just want to get rid of it, send it to me. I collect old code books. So it says right on the very first page of the code book. You ready for this? It says the code is purely advisory as far as the NFPA is concerned. Did you catch that? Purely advisory as far as the NFPA is concerned. So why is it such a big deal? Why we have to follow it? Because when the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction, adopts the code book, they codify it and it becomes law. Now you have to follow it. Now you have to follow it. So remember, it's technically advisory until it's adopted by the local authority having jurisdiction. You know, if you go to 90.1, that talks about the purpose of the code book. In paragraph A, it tells us that the purpose of the code book is the practical safeguarding of persons and property from the hazards arising from the use of electricity. That's what the intent is. And then it tells us also in that very same paragraph, it is not intended as a design specification. So if Ed, the old tech guy, wants to figure out how to design a network, he's not going to go to the code book. It's not designed for an intended design specification. It's not an instruction manual for untrained personnel. So if Lovart Warby picks up an apprentice on his crew, there's the people on my TikTok feed, and I happen to know Lovart Warby. If he happens to be training a new guy on his crew, a brand new apprenticeship, he's not going to give that guy or that person a copy of the code book to go learn how to do communications. It's not designed for untrained people. If you've ever read the book, you'll understand why. If you've ever read the code book or any part of the code book, tell me in the chat box if you have. And what did you think of it? Because it's not written in layman's terms. It's not. You think that's the end of it, don't you? In the very next paragraph, paragraph B, it tells us that the code contains provisions for safety. For safety. You notice it doesn't mention the word performance. It doesn't mention the word interoperability. It doesn't talk about future proofing, right? In the paragraph B, the last sentence tells us that the code will not be necessarily the most efficient way to do something. It's not going to be the easiest way. It's not going to be the most convenient way to do something. And it's not going to be adequate for good service or future expansion. Let that sink in. It's not going to be adequate for good service. So they don't even guarantee that it will perform right. That's why it's for safety, not performance, right? So that's why it always gets me when you see all these guys on the TikTok feed and Instagram and all the other social media feeds, and they always talk about, well, that's not in the code book. I'm sorry. I don't want to be an apprentice. I want to be the fiber guy. I want to do better than what the code book tells me to do. I'll give you a couple examples, just off the top of my head. In the code book, it tells us that we have to have 3 inches of space above the ceiling T-bars. That's so we can get in the ceiling and do the work. That's so the electrical inspector can get in and do the inspection work. It's also so the fire department can get into the ceiling to check for extension to make sure that the fire was in fact extinguished. 3 inches. Okay. Can you go more than 3 inches? Can you put the cable up higher so people can open the tiles more? Absolutely, you can. Here's another one. In the code book, it tells us you have to have 36 inches of clearance behind all active pieces of equipment. Okay. 36 inches, 3 feet. Can you put the rack out first? Can you put it out 4 feet? Yes. Are you exceeding the code? Yes. So it doesn't have to be exactly 36. That's what I'm saying. The code book is just the beginning. Just the beginning. You can always do better. The code book will be enforced by the authority having jurisdiction or the electrical inspector. Now, but Chuck, we don't have to pull a permit where I do cabling. So how are they going to know to come out and inspect my cable plant? Guess what? There's 2 ways that they can inspect your job. You want the first one, where they come out and look at your job before they sign the occupancy permit. Okay. And then they're going to tell you what needs to be fixed. The other way that they're going to do it is if something happens. Like say, for example, the building catches on fire and somebody died or got injured because the building caught on fire. And then the fire investigators are going to come out. They're going to look at the fire stops and they're going to realize, hey, wait a minute, that guy didn't do the fire stop correctly. Guess who's going to be held responsible? You. So trust me, you want to have them come out and enforce it or inspect it at the beginning. Okay. Codes. It's a great foundation, but you always want to do better. Standards will always exceed the code book. Okay. I can't think of any scenarios where I'll give you one. Code book says 3 inches above the T-bar. Standard says 6 inches. If you follow the standards, you're exceeding the code book. That's why it drives me crazy when I say you really should follow the standard. Oh, the code book rules. Well, technically it does, but you're doing better than what the code book does. You're doing better than the code book does. Now, here's the thing. Standards are voluntary. I'll say that again. Make sure you pay attention. Standards are voluntary. Somebody says now they feel dumb. Why do you feel dumb? Tell me in the code books, right? So unless you enter into a contract with the customer and the contract says you will follow the ANSI standards, and I got a copy of the ANSI standards right here. Here's my copy of the ANSI standards. Yeah, see how thick that sucker is? Yeah. It's a big book. Unless your contract says that you will follow the standards, they're voluntary. You don't necessarily have to follow them. You should follow them because they're written by industry professionals who know what the customer needs today and next week. They also know what's going to do to make that cable plant perform the way it's supposed to. It's going to make sure that it's interoperable. So if you're putting in for example, my switch down here on the floor, it's a trip light 24 port PoE switch. And if I follow the standards and I run a copper cable to my new ubiquity switch that Ed is sending me, it'll work because it followed the standards. Follow the standards. Right. Oh, I'm going there, medic. Don't worry. I'm coming at that next. Okay. Right. I'll give you an example. In the code book, there's nothing in the code book that tells us that we have to put plywood on a wall to mount our racks. You know, the wall mounted racks. There's nothing in the code book that says we have to use plywood. In the standards, there is. The standard recommends that you put 1 sheet of 3/4 inch AC grade plywood on the wall. That way, when you anchor that rack to the wall, there's less of a chance of that rack coming out off the wall. I saw a picture on. I can't remember if it was the Low Voltage Nation group or if it was Technology group. I'm in both of them because I want to stay connected to my techs out in the field. That way I can know what's going on. It was in one of those two. I can't remember which. There was a picture of a rack, a wall-mounted rack, sitting on the floor where they'd used plastic anchors and it literally pulled out of the wall. If you have it in a piece of plywood with lag bolts, that's probably going to fare a lot better. Plus, when you use plywood, it looks more professional, doesn't it? And it's also going to be a better attachment method. You know, another example is tie wraps. I mentioned the code book tells us, actually I didn't mention this, the code book tells us that we can use tie wraps to support our cables. It also tells us we can use staples, right? If you go to the standards and you read them, it's going to tell you, yeah, you can use tie wraps, but standards are better. Standards are better. Or Velcro is better. I mean, not standard. So if you follow the standard, then you know that cable that you just ran 295 feet will work for the network that it was designed to work with. Codebook doesn't care about performance. It only cares about safety. It wants to make sure that people don't get shocked or killed from it. Right? It also doesn't consider future expansion. The standards do. Now, the cream of the crop. If you want to be the best of the best, you want to be the platinum installer in your company, you want to be the guy that everybody goes to know how to do things, Medic, you're going to like this one. Follow one of the best practices, right? The best practices, the most common ones that we see in our industry, the Telecom Distribution Methods Manual, the TDM. I can't pick that book up and show you because I got a soft copy on my computer. The ITSM Manual, Information Transport Systems, Installations and Methods Manual. Okay, that's another best practice. Or you can have one of the Big C ICT installation practices field guides. Okay, these are best practices. You should follow these. If you follow these, you're exceeding code, you're exceeding standards. So I'll give you an example. If you read the copper one, which is, I believe this one, I need to put on my glasses. Nope, that's the fiber. This is the copper one over here. This is the copper one. So if you actually read in the copper one, it tells you, well, when you're mounting that plywood, you really should be using either toggle bolts with fender washers or galvanized screws. The code book doesn't tell you even have to use plywood. The standard tells you should use plywood, but it doesn't tell you how to mount it. Right? So if you follow a best practice, like one of those produced by Big C, Medic, say, there you go. You're not so dumb. See, you're pretty smart. If you follow the Big C best practices, then you know that network will design as the way it was performed or designed to work. Right? So make sure that you follow the best practice. And when I respond to things in social media, I always try to make sure that I use one of the best practices. So again, the real question is, do you want to be that apprentice? Do you want to be that copper guy, or do you want to be the fiber guy? If you follow the best practices, you are the best of the best. You are leading the edge. You are doing it right. That cable will work each and every time that's supposed to, as long as you follow the standards. Can you not follow the standards and get away with it? Sometimes, but you may not get the performance out of it you want. You may not get the interoperability out of it that you want. So if you really want to do the best, you really want to look up what the best practices say. Okay. Next question. This comes from Jose on TikTok. It was actually sent to me in a direct message a couple days ago. Evidently, Jose is a listener to my podcast, because quite often when I'm interviewing people, I will say, hey, if you could go back and talk to yourself at 18 years old, what would you tell yourself? I ask that of my people all the time. So he asked me, Chuck, what would you tell yourself if you could go back at the age of 18? Hey, in the chat box. Okay. Somebody says I look like Jimin from BTS. I don't know what BTS is, and I don't know who Jimin is. What would you, before I tell what I would do if I could go back and talk to Chuck at 18, tell me in the chat box, what would you tell yourself if you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self? What would you tell yourself? The three things I would tell myself if I could go back at 18 and tell myself, a lot of people would say, well, you probably tell yourself not to marry that first wife of yours. No, because without that first wife, even though her and I, we wouldn't have our wonderful children. I love my kids. So that's not a regret. It's just a chapter of my life. But the three things I would tell myself is, one, read more. Read more. The second thing I tell myself is, don't be shy. And the third thing I would tell myself is, make sure you apply growth mindset principles. It's 6:30, but I'm going to go a little long today, just so you guys, cable connections in the house. See you guys soon, right? So let's talk about the reading. When I was in high school, I was labeled SLRD, Special Learning and Reading Disabilities. Now look at me. Yeah. But I would tell myself to read more and read something that interests you, right? If you pick up a novel and you read a novel, there's a lot of benefits to that. The first benefit is it exercises your brain. You not only have to exercise your muscles, you got to exercise your brain. And when you're reading through that book, you're doing that, right? You're doing that because you have to remember all the different characters in that novel. You have to remember their relationships. You have to remember the settings. And then also there's books that are done in series, right? Right? Series. Like especially Dean Koontz, he loves doing them in series. The Jack Reacher stuff, that's also in series as well. So you got to remember not only characters, but you also got to remember them between books. That's exercising your brain. That's exercising your brain. It's also a good form of entertainment. Can be a free form of entertainment, right? Back in my day, we used to get a lot of free TV, broadcast TV, but now you got to pay for cable TV. If you have a book, a book's a $10 book is cheaper than a $180 cable TV bill. And here's the thing. When you're reading, your mind paints a better picture than Hollywood ever could, right? And if you're really cheap, like Chuck is, go to the thrift store. You can buy used books for a quarter. Quarter. For those who don't know, that's 1/4 of $1. Yeah. And so as I said, pick something you like to read. I like reading like military action stuff. But when you read stuff, it improves your ability to focus. It improves your ability to focus. And why is that important? Because when you're reading through that new version of the code book, which doesn't talk in layman's terms, which is a real challenge to read, if your mind's already been exercised, think of it this way. If you work out on a regular basis and you get on the treadmill and you run 10 miles, 5 miles, 1 mile, whatever often you do, when you go to work and you have to run up all them steps in the building, you're probably going to be easier to do that if you've been exercising, right? Let me know if I'm right or if I'm wrong. Well, if you exercise your brain, then that's going to make it easier to read, focus, and comprehend on a technical document, right? There you go. Also improves your literacy. Chuck in school, they said I would be a boxer. My teachers are rolling over my grades now. I won't tell you what my teachers said that I would be, because it's not appropriate for this feed. And here's another thing: it improves your vocabulary, and that helps you to be able to read other books that you might not necessarily choose. And if you pick the time that you read the book, it also can help you sleep better. If you like me, I like to read like 30 minutes right before bedtime. What that does, it tells when I sit down and I read for 30 minutes, that tells my brain, okay, it must be the end of the day. Chuck's reading. It's time to slow down. Makes it easier to go to bed. Because I'm telling you, those days that I don't read, if I'm on TikTok, I have a hard time falling asleep those nights. And then the last thing is quit being so shy. Quit being so shy. I'm an introvert. A lot of people don't believe it. Chuck, you got a podcast. You're out there all the time. I am an introvert. You put me in a room with a lot of people I don't know, I'm going to be the guy sitting in the back. I am painfully shy. But over the years of being a trainer, over the years of doing some other things, I've found ways to help make myself get out of that introvert. Because here's the thing: if you're an introvert, you're not going to meet new people. You're not going to network with people. Talking to new people, you might find your next job. You might find your next customer. You might find your next spouse. But if you don't force yourself to get out of your comfort zone, you won't know that. And again, I was painfully shy. I had a boss I used to work with, and we used to go to conferences and business meetings. It would amaze me how he could just easily just talk to people. And I'm like, wow, you knew that guy? He goes, oh, no, never met him before. Well, you sound like you're old friends with him. It's a great opportunity to meet, maybe a potential new employee, like I said, or a new boss, or a new company, or a new customer. Now, here's some couple tips on how to not be an introvert, how to learn how to read people, right? Learn how to read people. I never noticed you messaged me back on here. Sorry about that. Not a problem, Fiber Flipper. Not so long ago, I don't remember what I've messaged you about. Right? Learn how to read people. Right? What do I mean by that? What kind of clothes are they wearing? Right? So if I happen to be somewhere and I see somebody wearing, some Carhartt pants or some jeans, maybe like a work kind of shirt, and maybe they got a splicer pouch on the side. Hey, you're in communications, huh? What do you do? Right? If they're in a suit, that's another way you can do. Or here's the easiest way is, like, for example, let's say if you were to see me out in the public, my shirt says Bixie RCDD. If you know what an RCDD is, if just helps you get out of your shy zone. Hey, I'm thinking about getting my RCDD. Give me tips. If you get somebody talking about something that they're passionate about, they're going to open up and talk to you. And then when you have that conversation, then you can shift. Oh, what do you do for a living? Hey, you guys hiring? Are you looking for new work? Do you need a contractor? So you can work into those things, but don't ever start off with that, because people build a wall between you and them, and you got to break down that wall. The easiest way to break down that wall is I got all kinds of people saying they want to join. Here, I tell you, I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys join, but I'm almost done here in a second. So, what's up, guys?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing?
What do you got going on over there?
Talking about communications. What are you talking about?
We just saw you there alone, so we figured we'd come talk.
So let me ask you guys a question. So I happen to have you on right now. If you see somebody in a room that you want to talk to them, how do you figure out a way to talk to them?
In a room?
Yeah, let's say you're at a business event and you see somebody that you want to talk to, and you're shy, you're an introvert. How do you talk to them? How do you find a way to go talk to that person? What tools do you use?
I start with a compliment.
That's a good way. That's a good way, actually. What would you compliment them on, though? You got to be careful, especially in today's environment.
Something they were wearing, the way their hair looks, their shoes.
See? That's another one. Shoes. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Shoes. I pay attention to people's shoes. And not because I'm a shoe snob. I only own 3 pairs of shoes in my entire collection. I have my motorcycle boots, my farm boots, and a pair of tennis shoes. The only 3 shoes I have. But if I see somebody, for example, wearing a pair of Vans, well, guess what? That somebody's wearing a pair of Vans, they're probably skateboarders. My son's all skateboarded. So just strike up a conversation about that. Hey, I see you wearing Vans. Do you like to skateboard? And if they don't skateboard, I guarantee they have a kid that skateboards, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can use to kind of break the ice and get to talk to people. It's really, really not that hard. The key is you just got to take yourself outside of that comfort zone. That's the key. That's the key.
Would bring up sports.
That's a great one too. So sports. If they're wearing a Baltimore Orioles shirt, then A, they follow baseball. B, they follow the Orioles, and C, they're either from Baltimore or have ties to Baltimore, right? There's 3 different avenues that you can go talk to somebody. And you're talking to them something about they love. They obviously love it enough to go buy a shirt and wear it. That's just, it breaks the ice. Because I'm telling you, when I was young, I was so shy. I would not talk to anybody. And who knows, I might have missed a potential job opportunity, a potential customer. There's lots of things that could have come out of it. But because you break out of that box and you start doing that kind of stuff, you will certainly start being better about that. Hold on one second, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the live stream here at this point and talk to the rest of my people on TikTok. So if you want to continue this conversation, come on over to TikTok. Until next time, everybody, remember, knowledge is power.